No one likes planning their own mortality, but this is time made, not time spent. The challenges and financial strain without proper planning can unfortunately leave a stain on somebody's legacy. And that's what we're here to talk about today, how you can avoid this and help give you a guide in this challenging process. We are here with Michelle Cross. She is a senior wealth advisor, certified financial planner with Mariner Wealth Advisors. Michelle is a wonderful guest for today because she specializes in estate planning, but also she specializes in helping with the loss of a spouse or partner. Something that obviously is incredibly challenging and not only requires a lot of thought, but also has some financial strain that it can place on a family. So, Michelle, I just first want to thank you for being here, but where do you even begin this conversation? Because there's obvious barriers here, just even initiating it with anybody. Where do you begin this conversation with a family?
I think the best place to begin is really to maybe talk about my experience, my personal experience, and really why I became an advisor almost 15 years ago. My father had always done all of the finances. He was an entrepreneur, very successful, retired early. He loved working in the books and managing his own investments and was really good at it. And my mom, knowing that he enjoyed it so much, kind of took the back seat and said, "I'll just take care of the house, and you deal with the books." And everyone was happy with that. But then he got sick and he was not able to communicate for over 2 months. And what I saw happen was that the strain of having to take over the finances all of a sudden, in addition to not knowing whether he was going to make it or not, was just completely overwhelming. And it made me realize that it was not worth it, right? It's not worth it to do it all on your own. And so I actually switched careers at that point. I was in public accounting. I became an advisor because I wanted to be that kind of proactive, trusted partner and help people plan for the future.
Hmm. Wow. Yeah, that's obviously a personal story and a powerful one at that, right? Um, you know, I think those tend to hit home a little bit when they're in our inner circle. So, uh, I think beginning with that story is helpful, certainly for somebody to hear, hey, this has happened to me. I've maybe walked through this. What are some of the initial steps that someone can take, before this moment, ideally proactively, to really get this estate plan and this death planning, if you will, in motion?
Yeah, I mean, nobody really wants to talk about their own mortality, of course. I probably am a bit numb to it because I do talk about it every day. But I think first and foremost, if I could implore everybody who's listening to this to have a relationship with a trusted wealth advisor, one who takes a comprehensive and holistic approach. We, as wealth advisors, we're looking at everything. We're looking at how your estate is set up, account titling, who the beneficiaries are, what documents do you have in place, what have you done from an investment standpoint and taxes and cash flow management, all of that wrapped up together. It really helps to be able to understand your situation and give you guidance to know that aren't any holes and everything is buttoned up.
Yeah. Okay. So, maybe working with, in this case, an advisor and, launching that conversation. I think, at the same time, though, there's that barrier. I don't know if you've experienced this. I've experienced this as an advisor. It's like, we can sit here and talk about this for the next 10 minutes, but, all the things you should do financially and organizationally to bring things together. But at the end of the day, there's this barrier that exists of, you still got to get somebody to the table.
Yeah.
And I can share what's worked for me, in that process. as much as I would like to say it's, hey, eventually this is going to happen. We need to create something if something happens to you for your family, right? You can have the legacy that you want to leave behind. What seems to motivate people significantly is the potential financial strain in the form of taxes or inefficiencies or time that a family would have to deal with that eventual loss, right? Um, just again, example purposes, state of Washington, state of Oregon have very low state estate tax thresholds, and it's, hey, once you cross this, you might not be aware of this, but since none of this is maybe set up right now, or at least you think you have it set up, but it's not really set up to where you need it because you didn't tell the attorney exactly what you needed. you know, 10% of your estate, several $100,000 is going to go to, in this case, the states. And we're not even getting to the feds yet, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I will say that tax strain tends to motivate, in my experience, a lot of times, people in ways that I wish the personal strains that can be attached to just not organizing this would. I don't know if you've experienced that. Maybe I'm just like isolated. Maybe I'm framing the conversation incorrectly and I'm just not going about it right. But that's been my experience. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Well, I mean, I think you're exactly right. The difficulty is getting both parties to the table, because a lot of times what we see is, if there is an advisor relationship, that one who's more financially interested tends to come to the meetings and tends to be the point person. But then the other party who really needs to be there isn't always coming. And so I think trying to break down those barriers, and making the conversation more easy to understand, and being open and speaking to both, really encouraging that both parties come to the meeting is important, and that you're not talking over one of them, and you're
Right.
involving both. I do think that in order to get moving, there is one of kind of that fear factor, and you have to create doubt that there is a hole that needs to be patched or
I think
filled.
it's just illuminating that doubt, right? It's not
Yeah,
even, it's shining a light on it, right? Of there's more to this. And
yeah,
again, not to speak over you, I want to hear what the rest of you are going to say there, but my experience has been if you do not tell the attorney what you want in the estate plan, quite often the case is that individual will walk back with an incomplete estate plan. Um, there's kind of this combination of parties involved in that estate planning process. I don't know. Again, I don't know if you've experienced that, but it's almost like you're illuminating, like, hey, no, there's more complexity to this, right?
well, it's definitely a complex topic, and that's why I think that one of the values that we bring to relationships with clients is that we do that brainstorming on what you want your plan to look like, how it's set up now, how you want it to look. And we do that together, for that one, all wrapped in investment management, AUM fee, right? And you're not having those brainstorming conversations at $600 an hour in front of your estate planning attorney.
Yeah. That's, I think everybody'd be thrilled about that. And what are some of the basics that typically are telling people to get in place or to knock out, kind of in this initial estate planning conversation and
Yeah.
also in the initial estate plan?
Well, I mean, there's some very basic documents that everybody needs to have in place. So that's going to be a will, a power of attorney, a healthcare directive. Now, each state may call them something slightly different, but those are the three basic documents you need, right? If you have significant assets, especially non-qualified or not in a retirement account, you might want to look at having a revocable trust agreement. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Quite often, again, what I experience there, not to keep hammering it, is people say they'll have an estate plan. I don't know if you've experienced this, but it's like, oh yeah, yeah, we have an estate plan. Yeah. And, they just, I mean, how could anybody know the depths of all of these different professions and everything that's required in life, right? Estate planning is just one example of this. But you maybe have the basic docs in place. And so you say, yeah, I have an estate plan. Now you got maybe a couple million to your estate. You've maybe progressed and you've grown your wealth, and suddenly you've stepped into a new level of estate planning. And because that attorney isn't somebody that you're hanging out with and doing annual reviews like you would be with an advisor, they're maybe not going to be reaching out to you saying, hey, it's time for that next level here of estate planning. Maybe that is the trust planning, which, again, I don't know about you here, but I had assumed growing up that's just for the ultra wealthy. I didn't realize that trust planning very much so is a part of a large part of anyone's planning, right? I mean, it's I'm not sure the percentages on it, but at least the people that we serve, it seems like the vast majority of them are having to set up some type of trust at a certain point in time, right? So I don't know if that's been your experience there as well, but that's been mine.
Well, I think um, frankly, there's a lot of misunderstanding
Yeah,
on the part of the clients that are coming in about really what they've done from an estate planning standpoint. So you've probably seen this too, Mike, where clients will come in and say, "Oh, I have a trust, and it was set up years ago, and everything's all great." And then, as part of our review, we're looking at getting statements, account statements, and so I'm looking through, and I see a rollover IRA, and I see an individual account, and I see maybe a Roth IRA. And I say, well, you had this trust. Where's this trust? Oh, here. And they give me a piece of paper, but nothing has been titled in the name of the trust.
it hasn't been funded.
It hasn't been funded. So making sure that after you get your estate documents drafted and executed, that the funding is actually occurring is really important, and that the beneficiaries are correct. And
Yeah,
now, if you don't have a trust, there's a way to add a beneficiary to an individual account. It's called a TOD, or transfer on death. That is, bare minimum. So looking at account titling is super important to really understand and prepare for that next phase.
yeah,
No one
yeah.
else.
I think, and again, that's that combination and collaboration with the advisor in addition to the attorney. And we don't typically think of advisors as estate planners. We think of lawyers first.
Mhm.
But the different parties certainly play their roles. What are maybe some of the pitfalls that you've seen that are worth people knowing so they can hopefully avoid?
Well, the first one is really just not being aware of what you have and why you have it. So, not having the right documents in place, not knowing all of your assets and your liabilities. Um, One case that comes to mind is a probate issue, right? So we talk a lot with clients about how to avoid probate. I mean, not all probate is bad, but we're generally trying to avoid those extra fees and the extra time. And that's where the account titling comes in. That's really important. So the case that I'm thinking of, this is like became involved after the husband had passed, and they had a lot of business entities that were just titled in his name. And that was a really big problem when he passed.
I bet. I bet. Yeah. Um, just those formalities that get lost in the busyness of our
Yeah.
lives, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah. I certainly have seen some pitfalls and unfortunately some mistakes. I mean, everything from just not changing the beneficiaries of investment accounts, reviewing those. You got past girlfriends on there,
Hmm.
and you know you pass away, and suddenly it's not the people that you intended getting that money, right? And it's, well, I have it in my will. Well, you might have it in your will, but what does it say as far as a beneficiary, for each of these accounts? Where is that money being directed, right? The older that we get, we get increasingly more complex. And
Hmm.
because of that, we need to exert a little bit more intellectual fuel in the organization of our plan, right? So really appreciate your insights here today. Again, I think if we were to summarize, uh, it is not attempting this on one's own. And you experienced that yourself. Now you're on the other side, getting people to help out people, with something that you had to experience and kind of walk through on your own, which I think is just fantastic. So, thanks again, Michelle. To anyone who's listening to this, make sure to subscribe if you're listening on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you might be listening. Get more industry insights from industry professionals here at Mariner Wealth Advisors. Thanks again, Michelle. You guys take care.
Thank you.
Mariner Wealth Advisors, or MWA, is an SEC-registered investment advisor with its principal place of business in the state of Kansas. Registration of an investment advisor does not imply a certain level of skill or training. MWA is in compliance with the current notice filing requirements imposed upon registered investment advisors by those states in which MWA maintains clients. MWA may only transact business in those states in which it is notice filed or qualifies for an exemption or exclusion from notice filing requirements. Any subsequent direct communication by MWA with a prospective client shall be conducted by a representative that is either registered or qualifies for an exemption or exclusion from registration in the state where the prospective client resides. For additional information about MWA, including fees and services, please contact MWA or refer to the Investment Advisor Public Disclosure website at www.advisorinfo.sec.gov. Please read the disclosure statement carefully before you invest or send money. The views expressed in this podcast is for educational purposes only and do not take into account any individual personal, financial, legal, or tax considerations. As such, the information contained herein is not intended to be personal, legal, investment, or tax advice. Nothing herein should be relied upon as such, and there is no guarantee that any claims made will come to pass. The opinions are based on information and sources of information deemed to be reliable, but Mariner Wealth Advisors does not warrant the accuracy of the information. Asset allocation diversification is a strategy designed to manage risk, but it cannot ensure a profit or protect against a loss in a declining market. Certified Financial Planner, trademark, CFP, registered trademark, and federally registered CFP with flame design marks, collectively the CFP registered marks, are professional certification marks granted in the United States by Certified Financial Planner Board of Standards, Inc., also CFP Board. The CFP registered trademark certification is a voluntary certification. No federal or state law or regulation requires financial planners to hold the CFP certification.